Right, hello there. Sorry, I was just trying to find the unmute. Uh, yes, so this is a follow-on paper. As you may or may not know, Tula and I have done quite a lot of research into digital culture and so on, especially in the context of museums. So this paper is going to sort of consider some of those issues. Of course, digital culture moves on. Fortunately, we've got past this particular piece of digital culture. As you may know, Tula likes to write poems on digital culture. So this is in the current situation with COVID, considering the situation we're in and how digitality has had to increase a lot in the last year or two. This is just a piece of graffiti which summarizes this. I guess if you're in the UK, you might enjoy this little extra subtitle. So this is a follow-on paper from one that we did together in 2014. So I guess it's sort of, I guess the digital 7-year itch. We're considering what's happened in those 7 years, but probably, certainly in this talk, we're going to look more at what's happened because of COVID very recently. So of course, you know, things like this have happened. So this is New York on the right with the New York Public Library well protected from the public. I live in Oxford, so on the left here, you know, we did actually manage to go to a real museum, the Ashmolean, but of course you have to check yourself in with QR codes and all this sort of thing. So in practice, a lot of museums have been closed for quite a lot of the COVID period. And so museums have actually been considering as a whole what to do about this. So we've had a number of reports that's come out fairly quickly. So ICOM, the International Council of Museums, did a report last year in May, surveying museums and seeing what's happened. So they actually got a lot of responses in 107 countries, 1,600 responses over to beginning of last year when COVID was actually getting going. And at that point, 94% of museums were closed. So you can see it's had a huge effect on real museums and how they operate. So museums have had to become a lot more digital during this period. So as you can imagine, a lot of them actually enhanced their digital activities and so on during this period. So it's accelerated something that's been happening anyway, very much, as it's happened in a lot of other areas. So a lot of museums obviously have been using social media a lot more. Sadly, a lot of museums, majority of museums have had staff having to work at home, which is not surprising. And if you're freelance, then you're not in a very good position. Quite a lot of those have been laid off during this period. There's been a follow-on report in November last year. So this is looking at if there are any differences. This had 900 responses, so it's still quite a lot. A lot of staff have been furloughed, 14%, certainly in the UK. The furlough scheme has been very popular and it's been used by museums a lot, which I guess hopefully has saved a lot of museum staff. During the period beforehand, as you can see, slightly more furloughed. Quite a number of it enhanced their digital activities, especially in social media aspects. Again, freelance staff have been laid off, but it seems to have got slightly better in the intervening period. So hopefully that's a good sign. However, a lot are planning to downsize permanent staff, so that's not so good for museums. Certainly in this country, although there's support for museums from the government, I'm told that they're actually basically planning for museums or the cultural sector to be reduced as a result, even though they're going to support it. So they do give recommendations. So if you're a museum, then certainly go to the ICOM website and you can get advice on conservation of museum collections in this period. Enhancing security, obviously with everyone at home, the museums need to still be secure with their collections, so on. So that's been a big issue for museums. What to do talking to your public more remotely. what to do supporting your community. So obviously you can expand your community with digital outreach and so on. So that in some ways is good and has been an opportunity during this period for museums. And then what are you going to do at the end of lockdown? Certainly in the UK, we're being told that we're going to end lockdown this month. There may still be some lockdown restrictions, but museums can certainly start opening up at the moment. As well as ICOM, UNESCO have done a couple of reports. I think we heard about this from Anne Border this morning briefly, but they record that 90% are closed. They think that 10% may never reopen. These are probably the very small museums, maybe. Hopefully most of the large museums are resilient enough to avoid this issue. But the sector has reacted very rapidly to this by becoming more and more online. Sadly, in Africa and other less well-developed places, then there certainly is a big digital divide. And they have a lot less online content. It's a lot more difficult for them. So sadly, the situation currently is increasing that digital divide. They reckon there's about 95,000 museums in the world, which is expanded by 60% since 2012. So number of museums has been expanding rapidly. Whether we're going to see that reduce slightly, as you can see above, remains to be seen. But they did a follow-on report in April this year, more recently. So 80% of museums have found their income has dropped. I'm surprised it's not even higher than that. They've 43% have been closed in the first quarter of 2021. I guess that's slightly improved. Certainly they recognise strengthening links with communities, essentially online. There's also been more inter-museum cooperation, so museums are all in the same boat, so they're talking to each other perhaps more than they used to, which is probably a good thing, certainly as email and so on. So museums are cooperating more as a result. There are public subsidies across some countries, not all though, as you can see, and certainly national institutions are suffering quite a lot with decreased amounts of subsidy and so on. At this point, they think there's even more museums, 104. So whether they missed some in the previous one, I don't know. But remains to be seen whether museums go up and down in the next year or two after COVID moves on. So of course, one big thing we've had this year is non-fungible tokens. So that's expanded very much, as we've heard in the keynote earlier today. I don't know whether this should really be a neat financial trick. And as we've heard, there's probably a bubble happening. There's an opportunity to make a lot of money at the moment if you know what you're doing, but how long that will last, we don't know. And there's environmental issues and so on as well, as we've seen. So certainly that'll be interesting to discuss at the panel later in this conference. One interesting, perhaps you can call this cultural or not, but the source code for the World Wide Web, so Tim Berners-Lee sold that in this last month. He's made $5 million out of that. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do with this $5 million. Actually, that's not very much compared to the highest amount for an artwork, which is in tens of millions of dollars. But if you've got any old software lying around that you think somebody might be useful, you might not be in the millions, but perhaps if it's some interesting software, there's an opportunity to sell that. And now I'm going to hand over to our nice, friendly Tula, I hope, who can hopefully unmute herself, and she's going to present a few slides. So over to you, Tula.
Okay, thank you. Hi, hello everybody. So you see
we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Excellent. This is present to future in search of a new road. So what I'm going to discuss is an extension of the paper and putting us now, July 5. So from the darkness of COVID-19 in March 2019, we see new light on digital art as digital artists collaborate with creative tech for AR and VR, and moved to center stage for exhibitions. Digitality and reality merge. And this is a poem from the paper that just sets the stage here. COVID, I hate you, invader of life, purveyor of death, taking my last breath of life in reality. No going back to materiality. Digitality rules, fools our senses, breaks down fences, back to the trenches of my digital life. Need healing, reeling from lockdown, love lost, at what cost? Okay, next slide. You there? Okay. Okay, now we're coming to the moment of where Van Gogh takes New York with 2 exhibits, and this might be a window on the future. It's something that's in the physical world, it's digital, it's art, and it's in new venues, not museums. From the exhibition, The Starry Night at the Atelier des Lumières in Paris, February 2019, pre-lockdown, to 2 current Van Gogh immersive exhibitions opening in New York City. Van Gogh, The Immersive Experience by Exhibition Hub, opened June 5, and Immersive Van Gogh exhibit New York by Lighthouse and Maestro Immersive, June 10. So they're on right now. Below, screenshot from Van Gogh Immersive Experience. And this is the heart of what the exhibit is about, is being inside art. Above, Van Gogh's Starry Night, the original painting, on Wikimedia. Its image inspiring new digital art interpretations opens new horizons for digital art to attract massive audiences paying hefty prices for immersive art experiences. So here you have 2 Van Gogh exhibits making a lot of money. Okay, next slide, please. This is Van Gogh Alive, Kensington Gardens, London. Also current, June 4 to September 26. See, so you could go to this one now. Van Gogh Alive. And for Van Gogh, being alive was about being in love. In 1881, age 28, he wrote to his brother Theo, I cannot live without love, without a woman. I wouldn't give 2 cents for life if there were not something infinite, something deep, something real. So you see, Van Gogh was very much aware of the real and reality. Consider a life without love a sinful and immoral state. So this is a little window on Van Gogh's feelings about himself and about art. Okay, next. This is the next exhibit that's on now. It's called The Looking Glass, an AR digital art show in New York City at the Shed Plaza and Highline. An exhibition organized in partnership with the London-based company Acute Art, described as a laboratory for art and technology, curated by Emma Enderby, chief curator of the Shed, and Cecilia Alamani, director and chief curator of Highline Art. Takes its name from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. So Eberly notes, if The Looking Glass duplicates sensation of Pokemon Go in 2016-17, the search will be as exciting as the find. Whereas the title of the London iteration alluded to T.S. Eliot's poem, The Wasteland. In New York, the show gets its name from Lewis Carroll. Eberly adds, in today's Alice in Wonderland, the phone is the new rabbit hole. So here you can see in the picture I have here, something called Holiday Space. And this is in front of the plaza of the Shed. You can only see the artworks with your phone in AR. So this is a kind of an exciting type of art where it looks like nothing's there, But if you take your phone with the QR code, you will have this experience as though the object was really there. This is by Cause, and the artist Brian Donnelly, Acute Art. So this is another exciting way of embedding digital art into the physical space in an exciting way, and where the artist, the digital artist, takes the lead. So I thought that's an extremely important point. Next slide and last. So following up on the looking glass, this is something that I did for another paper for Florence, actually, and I thought it connected so well. When we think of Spanish surrealist painter Salvador Dali, often juxtaposed dream worlds and reality, thus making connections to our post-COVID world at the intersection of reality and digitality. So here on the left, you see a drawing of Salvador Dali for the 1969 edition of Alice in Wonderland Illustrated, the whole book illustrated by Dali, a magnificent book indeed. And this is on the right, you see that picture of Alice is from the original edition of the book, 1865. I'm going to read this poem about the digital abyss. The past fades as we wade deep into a rabbit hole down under the grassy knoll of the digital abyss. Following Alice into Wonderland, take my hand, entering remote identity in virtual reality. It's all a sham, can't recognize where I am. Virtual life seems out of hand, exhibitions and legacy systems, old traditions falling apart. Canceled ambitions, new renditions disappearing the past. The die is cast, can't hear your voice, no choice, time's running out. So I end with that note that time's running out, and I ask you, when you think of time running out, for what and how? I think that's kind of an interesting question. So thank you for my little section of the paper, and back to Jonathan.
Right, thank you. I guess probably time is running out for the talk. I have these special black arrows here. Well, I'll just mention activities going on here with Art in Flux, who are very much involved with EVA, and they've been doing a lot with the National Gallery X, which is an organization that's associated with the National Gallery. So that's been very interesting, and we're going to hear them, or Art in Flux, talk on Wednesday evening. But I think I assume you want me to move on quickly, but here's just a number of publications that we've done recently that are associated with this. So if you want to read more, this is where to look. And I'll move to the end and say thank you very much. I think we're on the 5 o'clock, so I think we're near the end. This is just a little artwork I produced using the Deep Dream generator. If you want to go and play with that, that's me. It's almost disappeared at the end. So thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jonathan, Tula. Yeah.